Hello, this is Steve, the acrylic glass man. Working on a project that I call Project McAllister. Soldering this panel. I'm using flux that I bought at Home Depot, made by Oatly. Works perfect. I use an inland maroon and white, which are very hard to find. I always steel wool the tip. I do not put it on a wet sponge. I believe that degrades the tip. I sort of have a feeling towards solder. We get along really well. I understand its tendencies, so to speak. You notice I'm not fluxing my window so many times like I've seen many. You only need to do it once or twice. After you know the tendencies of solder, you know how many times passes you get. I like to hold my iron almost straight up and down. Almost. I feed my solder on the barrel, on the tip. I also like to solder once and not come back. If I see something right here, just a little bit of a low area, take care of it now. I don't believe in this idea of coming back and fixing the soldering. I want it done. As I move along, I want it done. Don't want to come back and do the job twice. Try to pile my solder up as high as I can get it, so it has a very full rounded look. Too often people are very anemic about their soldering. There's not enough solder there. Oops, all this noises of a little ambulance in the background. I'm hoping that that person is fine. All is well. Don't want this to build up too highly right here in this intersection, so get it where I want, and then I'll come back and fix it when the solder cools. Sometimes you have to do that. I love soldering. It's one of my favorite things. I know that drives a lot of people batty. I've heard the swear words. Hope you're having a good day today. Ta-da. Ta-da. Sounds kind of funny, but soldering is very relaxing for me. Now, that's not the opinion a lot of people hold. I know that. They're frustrated. Well, on some level, I think they're arguing with the solder. The solder, for the most part, is always going to win. There's no sense in trying to beat the solder guy up. He's going to win. Solder has its attributes that are not going to change if we look at it like that, of course. I put these little solder balls about 1/4 of an inch away from the ends of my solder lines because when I put my zinc edging on, I have my solder already there. I can hold my zinc with one hand and my soldering iron with the other, and then I won't need a third hand to hold the solder. I've got enough there to get the job done, presumably. If I put these little solder deposits on the end of my row, then it all is well. I like that nice high profile, nice and round. I prefer paste flux. Only needed once or twice to realize the liquid doesn't work for me. I don't like this spitting and this smell, and I just don't like it. Paste flux is awesome. And just to be funny, one time I even used Vaseline. It's a funny video. In fact, I'll put some on right now. I could solder using Vaseline as a flux, because really that's all flux is, by the way. It's an animal fat. Okay, from this point on, we're soldering with Vaseline. Let's see how well. I don't notice a change. Do you notice a change? My favorite flux, though, is Canfield. I think it's the Rolls Royce of flux. I love it. By the way, most of my foiling I use 3/16. On this panel there's no 1/4 inch because some of the glass is thicker than others, there's a good amount of 7/32 in this panel, I can assure you. I don't always have the opportunity to use 3/16. But I like very finite, crisp lines. If your cutting ability is good, you're going to have a good time using the smaller the foil to highlight your good craftsmanship. Sometimes people are using very big, don't cut very well, and they're not doing themselves a favor by thinking they're going to highlight it, or hide it, I should say, with larger foils, 7/32 or even 1/4 inch. It's time sometimes to go back and hone your cutting skills if your soldering isn't coming out quite the way you're expecting it. Maybe you better re-examine your cutting. Been using Vaseline now as my flux, just to prove a point. Sometimes people get all caught up in the tools. I'm one of the people that definitely advocates use good tools, but I'm also a proponent of innovate and improvise. Two of my big catchwords. Doesn't exist, create it. Sometimes I get real meticulous myself, and I don't want anybody to tell where I even started or stopped. If I really want to get meticulous, I can do it. It's a lot of futzing, though. Yeah. I have a good time. I enjoy soldering. I remember soldering people's windows, the whole window. They would bring it in to me. Charge them a fee and by the hour and solder up their window. It's fun. A lot of questions around soldering. It's one of the biggest areas where people have difficulty is soldering. I understand. It can be very frustrating. I also understand that. I also enjoy doing abstracts, like what I'm doing right here on this project. And I'm going to introduce the Genesis system, which is my system I developed, which is going to help with the fabrication process where you can get such a very high degree of accuracy. Never had lessons, so kind of had to make up my own methods as I went along, and a couple years later I looked up and realized, oh my gosh, nobody else is doing it quite the same way. In fact, it's really eye-opening in some ways of finding that realization. Well, anyway, the Vaseline experiment I think is over. I think you get the notion that there are other components out there that will work, that may surprise you. I think Vaseline would surprise a lot. I've never used Crisco, but I guess that would be my next experiment. You have to be very relaxed. It's almost like riding a horse, where the horse senses the tension. Just be relaxed. You'll do just fine. Well, I'm going to move my camera, obviously, to accommodate more areas. And I hope this was a relaxing video for you as well. There's 3 components to soldering. Get the iron itself. Find yourself a good iron. I don't use a rheostat, by the way. Don't need to. The iron can barely keep up with me. You've got an iron, you've got solder, and you've got flux. And then the biggest part is you. Hopefully this, you see I'm putting on my flux. Trying to get everything going. That way I don't have to stop and flux as I go. It's kind of a little paintbrush kind of a thing. I'm not trying to lather it on, but I'm also not being skimpy. Well, let's see. I'm going to do this in the pitcher, but I always clean the tip with steel wool, never with a wet sponge. I don't believe in it. I'm really operating on a strange, awkward angle that you can't tell to reach over in order to solder right now. So I think what I'll do is just end this video here so I can get the angle, so I don't have to fight this angle I'm on for my photographic needs. Anyway, I hope you're having a great day. A great day of discovery. Hug somebody. Let them know that you appreciate them. And hope to hear from you. And your warm comments are always welcome here. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.